All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I just want to let everybody know here in the audience, we will take questions afterwards. I'll give you the microphone so we can put those on the live stream. For those of you on the live stream, on the sidebar, click on the join in the discussion so we can get into the Discord channel and ask your questions there. With that, we have an interesting talk here. A couple of my favorite things. I'm a huge fan of SpringAI, but Denis is going to put a little bit of a twist on it, giving us a different side of it, showing us kind of something new. So I'm excited to see this, and I'm excited to watch Denis do his thing. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, folks, for coming in. Thanks everyone who is watching us live today. Yes, again, we are going to talk about AI, LLMs today, but I would like to take a practical approach. We will take SpringAI as our framework. We will take Postgres picture vector, Postgres as a database, and we'll create a custom plugin. And our goal would be to launch this plugin on this familiar interface within the next 44 minutes. So this interface, all of you, I guess, recognize. I use ChatGPT daily. At least it helps me to do some proofreading of the stuff that I write. But also what happened, I think almost a half a year ago, OpenAI launched the marketplace. And the name of this marketplace is just boring, it's GPTs. So the goal of those GPTs is you have this LLM running somewhere in the cloud, and you already talk to it through this ChatGPT interface, but also you can create your own plugins that will enhance and augment the behavior of GPT models. So as an example, if you scroll through this marketplace, you will find that there are some of the plugins that help with image generation, some graphics, with learning, etc., etc. There are many categories. And it's very easy to create a plugin. The simplest way is you just go ahead, come up with your custom system prompt that will share more context and instructions with LLM, and then you can launch your plugin. Probably that plugin will be successful, probably not. Another approach that we are going to explore today is how about we have our own data that belongs to our company, that belongs to our business, and that data uniquely identifies us, right? This is what makes us unique, because we have this data about our customers, orders, and products. And then we can create some backend application. And that backend application will be sitting in between ChatGPT and our data, and it will be doing something useful, right? So the goal for today is to create a plugin, launch it on this marketplace. And as for the architecture, we are going to use SpringAI because it simplifies the development if you're a Java developer. You can create a plugin pretty much for everything. It's up to you. It depends like what your company does and what your products you sell. What I'm going to use today is a use case that will resonate with all of us. All of us, watch movies from time to time. And how about we create some movie critique? Someone who can recommend various movies. Let's say that I work for the company. That company stores some unique database about various movies that can give me precise recommendations. And I want to launch my plugin. I want to monetize this plugin to get new users, to get extra revenue stream. The architecture of this application looks as follows. So here's VR users. We just go to ChatGPT. That's what many of us do daily. And then instead of typing something to ChatGPT, we will be using our plugin to get to ask for some movie recommendations. So what ChatGPT does, it will connect to our application backend that needs to run somewhere in the internet. And that application backend will be our Spring Boot application with SpringAI. We will be using a sample data set of a movie company, some various movies that exist. We will be performing the vector similarity search over our database, and then we are going to return this data to our application backend, and the application backend will be getting this data back to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will be giving you those recommendations. Apart from these questions, like the typical, agent interaction, also this plugin will be able to do things for you. For instance, this application will store your movie catalog. What do you want to watch, let's say, next week or next day? And you will be able to ask ChatGPT, hey, please, I like this movie that you recommended, please add it to my movie catalog. So the agent, the plugin, will be able to do that. And my goal is to show you today a trivial, dumb, simple implementation that uses SpringAI, that uses PostgreSQL picture vector. And then that probably will spark your imagination just on how you can further how you can build your own plugin and monetize it on the ChatGPT marketplace. Let's go. So our flow is going to be as follows. I don't have any slides. Let's do this. Nano slides. The first step, how many of you are familiar with SpringAI? How many of you have written at least one line of code in SpringAI? Cool. So as long as not everyone knows, well, at least try to run SpringAI, I'll do this. First, we will create a simple version of our application. That application instance is going to be using chat model of SpringAI. That will be just sending requests to GPT model. And that GPT model that is used by ChatGPT is going to provide recommendations. So this use case is not super unique. We will be just interacting with GPT model programmatically. Okay? But then we will start creating something uniquely. We will be using embedding model, also of SpringAI. And that embedding model will be performing the vector similarity search over our data in our database, and then we will be providing recommendations. And only the last step is going to be the plugin. We will launch our app and database somewhere in the cloud, and then we will create the plugin. Anyway, my goal is to show you this step by step. So the application that I showed, it's here. I cloned it. It already has, some implementation. If you go to the PAM XML file, you will find SpringAI there. It's here, one of the latest versions. And my goal is to implement the following movie controller. So generally, right now, this movie controller is a REST controller that can handle two types of requests. It can provide some details for a specific movie that the application asks. And also, it can search for movies recommendations. You just need to provide the user prompt. That's it. Now, let's start this application instance and see what happens if I start the current version of the app. I'm doing Maven Spring Boot run. Also, while the backend is being started, let's start our front end. I need to go to front end. And there I need to start it. I'm using, what I'm using? React. I'm using React, but you're free to use whatever you like more. So the backend is running. I'm using Postgres. Postgres has the PG vector extension that allows you to store vectors in the database and perform the vector similarity search. So Postgres is more than a relational database. It's a general purpose database that can handle all types of other data, including vectors. Now let's jump to my application UI. I'm a backend developer, and I begged my friend to help me to design this UI. Hopefully you like it, because I would not be able to do it by myself. But generally what the application does, here is we can type some user prompt. Let's say that I want to watch something like long time ago in the galaxy far, far away. All of us recognize this, right? You do the search and you see this message, it's not implemented. This is what we need to fix. What's already implemented is here is to the left. This is my movie catalog. This is what I, as a user, decided to watch. Okay? And we also would need this movie catalog for our final plugin because we want the ChatGPT to update and manage my movie catalog. I want to have some sort of assistant. Let's do this. Let's start implementing this application where that error is coming from. So this method is already implemented, and that's why we see all of those movies under my catalog. The information is visible. But this one is the error not implemented is coming from here. We have not implemented the search method. And as I said, let's start with the first step. Those of you who are not familiar with SpringAI, first, before I start using my own data, my own database, let us try to connect to the GPT model that runs somewhere in Azure cloud environment and try to use the broad knowledge base to pull some information about movie recommendations. I will be using the chat model of SpringOne. It's all easy to do. You just do this chat model, and I will show you how it's initialized. We will also auto-wire it. Not chat client. Sometimes, GitHub Copilot is helpful. Sometimes, no, it's just auto-wired. And then we are doing this chat model. Done. So this is a bean. It's auto-wired. Where does the configuration come from? If you go to application properties file, here you will find some of the settings which are specific to SpringOne. For instance, as long as I am using OpenAI models, I need to provide my OpenAI key. I've already done this. I exported this as an environment variable. And then I'm going to use the OpenAI, the following chat model, GPT-4. It's not the latest, not the greatest, because it has newer versions of the models. But I'm a lazy guy who decided not to update this application before this presentation. And then the next version of our application is going to use the embedding model. Let's wait for that moment. So the chat model is ready. We are going to use GPT-4 model. By default, SpringOne will do all the setting. And then, if you're using the chat model and chat client, you need to create some system message. What the system message does, it will provide some context, instructions for the LLM. What do we as users expect from it? What do we want it to do? And here is to save a bunch of the time for us today. I will just copy paste this prompt. Otherwise, I would spend 5 minutes, typing this system message. What it says, we want the LLM to act like a famous movie critic who can easily recommend movies. At least provide 3 movie recommendations. And also what's important for us, application developers, each movie record that you're going to return needs to have the title, overview, vote average, and release date. And SpringOne will get this response, and SpringOne will be able just to convert this raw data into Pojo objects. So this magic is done for us transparently. And also, I'm doing this extra clarification. The release date needs to be of the following format, just in case. And that also will help SpringOne to make this conversion properly. This is our system message. That was the hardest part. This is the hardest part when you use the chat model or chat client, because what happens next is you just need to rely on your memory or on the Copilot. What you need to do, no, it will not work. You need to do chat client builder interface. We are passing our chat model. Then I'm saying, please, by default, unless the system message is provided for a message, use my system message as the default one. And after that, I'm building the chat client. So the chat client will be sending requests over the network to the cloud where OpenAI runs its GPT-4 models, okay? This is what we want to do. And now, how about we send our first request? We want to do this, we want to get an instance of a prompt object. Then we need to pass our user message. So the user message gets here. It comes from the following UI, right? After that, so what next? I'm afraid to forget anything. Then you need to do the call method. So we are making a network call to the model. And after that, let's get their response as an entity. I want to get new parameterized type reference. And I know that the AI will return at least 3 movie recommendations. That's why I want SpringOne, no, it's reverse. I want SpringOne to give me a list of movies. Okay, so this is the complete implementation. Ah, thank you. So this is how we saved 2 minutes of our time. Thank you, my friend. So we need to do prompt. We are ready. Let's restart our backend. and give it a try. Now, the previous session was about Spring Security. I also do care about security. That's why whenever I restart my application instance, I need to authenticate one more time because that's a new instance of the application. I use Spring Security as well. Now, if I run this request, it will take 5-10 seconds to get the data. Why you didn't tell me that I forgot to update the return method? So, okay, at least nothing failed here, which is good news. But, right, we need to update this section. The status needs to be success. We are also returning the OK message, and no, it's fully implemented right now. And please return the movies, right? We want to get the list of the movies. Restarting. One more time. Executing the prompt. Waiting. 5-10 seconds. Why does it take so much time? Because you're just running this request through that large language model. It's powerful. It was trained on vast amount of data. But if you want to find something specific, it takes time to execute. Plus, you need to get this data back and you need to populate the response. But we've got the right recommendations. Like the LLM, the AI, made sense of my prompt. It's all about Star Wars. Everyone knows who watched this movie at least once in their lifetime. So this is the simplest version of the application. But I don't find anything unique about it, about this version. I don't want to use it as my plugin. What I want to do instead, let's say that I have my own data set, because I work for some company and we have some unique data that is stored in my database. Now I want ChatGPT and LLMs to use this data to provide some unique feedback to my users and customers. And that might open new revenue streams for me. How do we do that? First, you need to have a database. I am running Postgres here. You are free to use any other vector database. I use Postgres because I belong to the PostgreSQL community, and that's what I usually use as a database in all of my talks. What I did, let me show you my Postgres instance. It runs in Docker, and I'm connecting it, password. I have this movie table. If you take a look at the columns of this movie table, what I did, I found this data set. It's not mine, but it's distributed under an open license. And then for every movie overview that I have in the database, I generated an overview vector. And every overview vector takes, let's say, 1,536 bytes of data. I used one of those embedding models of OpenAI. So it was just a loop, reading every overview, generating an overview vector for every movie and writing it back to the database. That's it. And the model that I used, it's already here in my SpringAI configuration. This is one of the previous models that was provided by OpenAI. So my next step is to take this user prompt or any other user prompts to use the same model to translate this prompt to a vector and then to perform the vector similarity search over my local database. And by doing that, I hope to find some relevant movie recommendations. And this is a very dumb and simple use case because we are using movies, but you can relate this to your own data, to the company you work for. How do we need to change our application? First, we need to get rid of the following implementation. Yes, we wasted 8 minutes of our time. But hopefully those who have never written any single line of code in SpringAI now can see that it's very easy to create a simple GenAI application in Java, just 3 lines of code. If you don't count, how many lines it takes to create a system prompt. But embedding, now we are going to use embedding model. I also want to auto-wire it here. And the implementation actually is going to be straightforward. First, I'm going to use the embed method of the embedding model where I need to pass the user prompt. Okay? And what the embedding model will return, it will return an array of floating point numbers. So this is also a network call to the cloud, like where OpenAI runs its embedding model. So this is a network call. But the response time will be much faster. Because once we get this, the embedding generation is very fast, and the search over your local database is also very fast, especially if you use specialized indexes for vectors. So what happens next? SpringOne obviously has high-level abstractions for vector databases. You can just write some Java-level code, and that code will automatically go to your pre-configured vector database and do whatever needs to be done. But unfortunately, or likely, I'm a SQL guy, and I usually select in a hard way. I will use the JDBC client of the Spring ecosystem to query my database directly. I will show you how you can perform the vector similarity search of a Postgres using embeddings that are generated by SpringOne. But then you decide whether you want to run direct SQL or you want to use high-level abstractions of SpringOne in your applications. So what we need to do, I don't want to get all the columns. This is anti-pattern in SQL. What I want to do instead, I want to have movie IDs. I want to have title, overview. What else? We need to have release date and vote average. Okay? We are selecting this from the movie. And now we need to get specific data. Where? If I jump back to my Postgres instance, let me show you how it looks like. Let's pick one random movie, overview vector from movie, limit 1. Now it's not readable. So this is the vector that is generated for one of the movies. And this is the overview. And now what I want to find? I need to perform the vector similarity search. First, you need to calculate the distance between the overview vectors and your user embedding. We are converting this user embedding to the vector type. This is the type of the Postgres PG vector. So what does this mean? This is the cosine distance. The cosine distance is an angle between your two vectors. So the smaller the angle, the more relevant a movie is for the provided user prompt. The larger the angle, the less relevant a movie is for your question. But usually when we talk about the vector similarity search, we say similarity search. We don't say like vector distance search. And I want to take this distance and convert it to similarity. How do I do this? It's a simple calculation. You just need to subtract this distance from 1. Okay? And then the similarity is the value in the range from 0 to 1. The closer the value to 1, the more relevant a movie is for your user prompt. And I want to get all of the movies which are at least 70% close to my user prompt. So the next step is, yes, we also need to order by the similarity descending, meaning that the more relevant movies go first. And the final operator is we need to get only 3 movie recommendations. That's it. Let's pass the parameter because we want to avoid SQL injections. User embedding. Yeah, looks about right, but you never know. So what we are doing, we are selecting all of these columns from our movie table. We are calculating the distance. It looks right to me. We are ordering by the similarity, and we are getting all of those movies back. Let's restart our application. Okay, no compilation issues. Sign in. Okay, and we've got some response. But only this time the data is coming from my database. It's not coming from that broad knowledge base of GPT models. So what we've done, we already have an application running on my local laptop, and the next step is to create a plugin. And I want that plugin to use my database, and I want that plugin to use this version of the application. How do we do that? For every plugin, if you go to the GPT marketplace, once you start creating it, you can define actions. And those actions are your APIs that the LLM can reach out to do some useful stuff. And those APIs can be just REST APIs. As an example, my UI, application UI, uses the REST interface. And I can get the same movie recommendations if I run the following REST request over my local server, right? Over my local instance of the application. I just do this, and I'm getting these recommendations. Or what I can do, I can take a look at my user library by executing the following request. So this is what's needed to create an action for your plugin. But also, you need to deploy this somewhere in the internet. And there is one of the requirements that you have to follow if you want to create a plugin. You cannot, just take and deploy your backend on one of the virtual machines and then use that public IP address for the communication between ChatGPT, etc. No, OpenAI will not allow you to do that. When you deploy your application instance somewhere, you need to create a DNS name that is registered, that is verified, and also it needs to be some secure domain. You need to use SSL for the communication. And again, I was lazy and I decided to use Heroku. My application is already running. This is my domain, https://ai.dmagda.com. I deployed the same instance of the application on Heroku. And Heroku also comes with this SSL certificate so that I don't need to configure anything manually. So my application is running. And if I take this application address right now and go to my API requests, I will just replace this local host with my application instance somewhere in the cloud, and I will run this request, and I'm getting the same recommendations. It's like, it works. So the application works. You just need to deploy it somewhere. As for the database, it's okay to use Postgres, but I decided to use Yugabyte DB for the following example. First is I work for Yugabyte. I need to talk to you about Yugabyte whenever I have a reason. But if to put jokes aside, Yugabyte DB is a distributed version of Postgres. So if you want, I expect my plugin to be successful. Yes, I'm one of those startup founders who always knows that my startup will, become the top startup, the top company. And I want to deploy a distributed version of Postgres that can scale read and write workloads across a cluster of nodes, and that can tolerate various outages, including zone and region level incidents. I want my plugin to be up and running, even if we have some issues in the United States East Coast of AWS region, so which happens rather frequently. Now, this is my 3-node cluster of Yugabyte DB. It runs across 3 availability zones in the United States West 4, and I have the same data there. So the same Postgres PG vector extension, the same data, no any changes. Which means that from the application standpoint of view, application still thinks that it's working with Postgres. Now, let's go to their action. When it comes to the action, we should think about authentication, and I implemented the most basic approach. I will be passing, you need to pass your custom header. The name is XAPI key. The value that is hard-coded in our application is as follows. Don't do this. Yeah, it's like, I need to take shortcuts sometimes. I need to. And then here is you provide your schema. So this is where you list your APIs and how those APIs can be used by the ChatGPT. Again, we will not be typing this schema. This schema is already in the repository. If you want to reproduce these steps, you will find the schema. You can copy and paste it. But generally, how it looks like, this is OpenAPI schema, not OpenAI, OpenAPI specification. I say that please connect to my server that runs on this domain. And that server supports the following API endpoints. First, you can search for the movies. So this endpoint allows you to retrieve various movies, and this is what you can pass as the prompt, parameters like rank, category. All this information will be analyzed by ChatGPT so that you don't, when you're creating a system message, you don't need to explain the AI how to use this API. It will take your API specification and it will figure out how to use the specification. Apart from that, if you scroll down, so there is an endpoint for their requests when you want to get your movies catalog. So please return me a list of my movies, what I plan to watch. And then also there are some of the API endpoints that let the AI to act on your data. If you want their AI to update your movies catalog, there is the put method that will add a new movie to your library. And also there is a remove method that will delete some movie from your library. Okay? What I'm doing next, I will just copy and paste it. Now you can see that ChatGPT recognized the following 4 API endpoints. Let's give them a try. Let's test the search movies. It's trying to connect to my domain. Why you cannot interact? Where is my GPTs? Okay. Let's go here. Let's try one more time. Okay, starting action. I allow to make those calls all times, and you can see that, yeah, I connected. Also, to make sure that that's not a fake interaction, let me connect to my Heroku deployment of the application. I will be looking at the logs. So this is the last message. This is the request that was sent by the ChatGPT to test my endpoint. And you can also check this one, load user library. Let's see that this endpoint also responds. Okay, so this is what we are getting. If you go to the logs, you will find this is the request that our application received from ChatGPT. So we've got this connection. There is a connection between ChatGPT and our application backend. And we have 11 minutes left to finish initializing our backend, which means that it's not that hard to deploy your plugin. The hard part is to come up what exactly do you want to launch on that OpenAI marketplace. All right, so the action is ready. Let's go here. Now, let's call our plugin Movie Boss. Then you also need to come up with the description, some of the instructions, conversation starters. And the creators of this marketplace, they knew that we humans, we are lazy. And there is a special plugin that helps you to create configuration and definitions for your plugins. It's called GPT Builder. At least what we will do, we will simplify the life of the GPT Builder. I have the following initial configuration. Let's do this. I'm asking, just again, you're world famous movie critic who can recommend various movies. You are using the provided actions and APIs that we just configured. That's the only reference that we have to our custom APIs. If you take a look at this, system message, you will not find any instructions what method to call and when. The AI will learn from the specification what needs to be done. Then also I'm saying that you can also assist your users in viewing their movie catalog and updating it by adding movies, okay? And some other data. Okay, it says that your Movie Boss GPT is now set up, it will provide, okay, blah, blah, blah. But what's missing, I want to have some profile picture. Let's create a profile picture. Let's see what's going to be generated. It doesn't work. It needs to be a boss standing near a theater. Yeah, there are some. Okay. That was harder. Looks good. Looks good. Finish configuring the GPT. Nice. Now, if you jump to the configure button, you will see everything pre-populated for you. So you don't need just to come up with the best description or with the best specification. The next step is let's launch it, but not publicly. But everyone who has the link, I cannot launch it because I need to update privacy policy. Let's go to this configuration here, and if you scroll down, we have this privacy policy. How about we do this Oracle privacy policy? All the questions should be directed to Oracle. At least. All right, now we can launch it. Let's go to the logs. That was the last message that we received from the ChatGPT. Now I want to view my GPT. It's launched, but it's available only to me and everyone who has a link. Okay, so there are some of the conversation starters. I am in the mood for a thriller. Okay, got any suggestions? Let's see what happens. It connects to my application backend, Spring Boot plus Spring AI, and then it connects to Yugabyte DB and uses the Postgres PG vector extension to perform the vector similarity search. So those are recommendations. If you go to the logs of your application, that was the request, API, prompt, etc. Nice. Please, let's do something. Let's say that, please, I like the third movie. Add it to my watch list. Let's see what happens. Like the first time when you want the AI to modify your data, you will be asked this question. Oh no, it asked this question because I requested to do so in my system message. That's why. Okay, it says that, the family plot movie, the third one, was added to my movie catalog. If you go to the application logs, you can see this API put method that was executed against of the following endpoint. And take a look at this ID. The ID of a movie was not displayed on the UI, right? I did not see it, but ChatGPT remembered it internally as part of this conversation thread. So it knows, it remembers things. Cool, but let's do this. Show me my watch list. Okay, so that's the list. And this is the movie that we have just added a few minutes ago. How about that? Okay, you say that, by the way, I watched the second movie, the second and third movie. Remove them from the list. What happens now? As long as I do not support a bulk delete operation, my guess is that, it said it removed. And you can see that it executed this delete method 2 times. If I had a bulk delete operation configured in my specification, then I guess that the AI would be much smarter, but at least it's doable. Show me the list one more time. Okay, I have only 2 movies left. And how about this a little bit more complicated question? I want to watch the best Star Wars movie. Find the best and add it to my watch list. So this one is a operation requires the search across my database first and then the update. I've never tried actually this request. Let's see what happens. Okay, looks like The Empire Strikes Back is the best in the series. Do you agree? It's a good one. And it was added to the list. If you go to the application logs, let's take a look. Yeah, it searched for the Star Wars movies, and then it figured which one was the best, and then it added that best one to my movie catalog. Show me my list. One more time. Yeah, it's here. It's in the database. So this is how easy it is to create a plugin for the marketplace. It's all up to your imagination. But remember this, it's highly likely that the data that you or your company or your business collects is already defines you uniquely. And if you give access to this data, to these LLMs, then you will be able to create a useful plugin. When it comes to monetization, I have not created any successful plugin yet. So which means that I don't have any successful story to share, no any tips and tricks. But at least from the how it works, if there is anyone like Dan creates a lot of the videos on YouTube, and on YouTube actually you're getting some revenue depending on how many people watch your movies, right? You have, let's say, 100, you have 100 movies, and your movie is like the first one, your movie collected, let's say, 80% of the views, you will get 80% of the revenue. The same is here. You have, let's say, 100 different plugins, and your plugin generates most of the user interactions, then you are going to get most of the revenue. So this is how it works. But in the meantime, hope now you can see how easy it is to create GenAI applications in Java using SpringOne, how easy it is to query your own data using open source databases such as Postgres and Yugabyte, and then it's even easier to launch your plugin on the marketplace. We have 2 minutes left, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Here, 1 second.
Is that all under one user right now, or would it know if you logged into somebody else?
Yeah, you know the answer. It's only the one user right now. Not because it's not possible, just because that's me. I'm lazy, but if you go to the configuration, where are my GPTs? If you go to the configuration of this GPT, let's go to the action. You can create auth, which means that it's a much better way when you have a SaaS application, etc. For tests, like for prototypes like this one, you can just pass this custom header. This is what I did.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks, Denis. Appreciate it.
Thanks.